Hello, you fucks. Welcome to John Solo's Beer Brigade. I am John Solo, and you are not. Today's a big day. We're making just a bit of a change. I know, I change everything always. We're making a bit of a change to the Storytime segment. This is going to be the last Friday. Well, maybe not, but the last Friday we are consistently doing Storytime on Friday. The reason being is I know a lot of times I want to make sure the Storytime segment lines up with a chapter that is appropriate, that I can share with you guys and that sort of thing. And sometimes it just doesn't when I'm doing Storytime at a set time, Friday at 5 p.m. So coming next week, the little Ramblin' Gremlin segment is going to take our Friday slot, and my Storytime segments are going to be more of a, whenever I start a book, I'm just going to get one of the first couple chapters, and I'm going to post it up whenever I damn well please. But that probably means you're going to get more Storytime segments because I typically do a couple books a week. So that's good news for you. Depends on the length of the book, but isn't it always about the length? Anyways, today we're working on something very special. A few months ago, I started working with a new client, Kiki Clark, the name that's fun to say on your face. Wear on your face or say in your mouth or I don't know, but it's fun. And then just say it out. Kiki. Kiki. I like to say it. Kiki Clark came to me and approached me about a new series that she's doing. Leather and Chrome. Now, I gotta tell you, I could care less about bikers. I don't fucking care. But the book was fucking amazing. Reckless is the name of the first book. And I've had more people come to me and say the same thing. I'm not really into these biker club books, but this was fucking amazing. It was. I was intrigued from word one. And she created something really special here. If you haven't checked out Reckless yet, you're doing yourself a disservice. Go get it. Read it, listen to it, whatever you need to do. I don't normally encourage people to listen to my shit. I don't care one or the other. I mean, really, there's better people out there to narrate this stuff than me. But I'm proud of my work on that one. I did a good job on it. Me and Kiki, we matched up. We didn't even talk beforehand either. We just matched up like a mind meld thing. Her name was all over my face. It was like, Drew. Anyways, I'm not going to go any further. You need to listen to the book or read the book. It's fantastic. Now, the second book, I didn't know what we were getting into here. I thought, maybe a the Walking on Sunshine Girl. I'm not sure how this is, but it's every bit as good. It's fucking brilliant. We're about halfway through it right now. The book is called Temptation. And what I want to do in these Storytime segments moving forward is to give you one of the first couple chapters. That way I'm not really giving any huge spoilers or anything like that, but this one we're not doing that. This is spoiler city ahead. And on top of that, it's going to be a sexy scene. You heard me, Mom. Don't listen to this one. It's a sexy scene. Now, I've not read all the words in this chapter yet. My lovely wife, Jody, did the pre-read on this, so she laid out the notes for me. I saw what's coming up, and my experience with Kiki's sexy scenes is they're a little bit beyond sexy. They're steamy. It is what it is. So if you don't like that sort of thing, one, why the fuck are you in this channel in the first place? But two, tap out now, because this is going to get hot down here. For this, I'm doing something a little different because I have a hard time concentrating on some of these things. I'm in Discord in the background too. Tracy's back there. Say hi, Trace.
Hi, Trace.
Ta-da! Trace is going to be correcting me. This is a session, so you're going to hear mistakes. You're going to see my screen up here. I'm turning the lights down so I get a little less distracted so I can kind of get into this a little bit. It is what it is. Check it out. Watch me for the changes. Try and keep up and all that shit. It is fun to wear on your face. Kiki Clark. Just say it, and you can't say that name and not smile. Chapter 9. There was something like wonder on Six's face, and Ollie knew if he wasn't careful, he'd fall for the man before the weekend was even over. And that kind of neediest was neediest. Careful? The weekend was even over. And that kind of neediness was the opposite of sexy. Luckily, the timer on his phone started going off, interrupting the heavy moment. He tried to hop off Six's lap to grab it, but his big hands tightened, not allowing him to move more than an inch. Laughing, he nuzzled against Six's grumpy face. Daddy, I need to get up. Who is that? Ollie stared at him in confusion for a second, and then warmth began to grow in his belly when he realized Six thought his phone was ringing, and that Ollie had tried to jump up to answer it. He gently brushed his lips against Six's stern ones until they softened and he could really kiss him. Keeping things soft and light was his plan, but Six... well, he was the boss after all. Ollie moaned as Six palmed the back of his head and gripped his hair, tilting him just so, and then taking possession of Ollie's mouth. Ollie opened for him without hesitation, teasing his tongue against Six's as it drove into his mouth and learned the shape of his teeth and palate. He'd never felt owned from a simple kiss before, but the tight hold Six had on him and the way he fucked into Ollie's mouth with a single-minded determination had his thighs quivering where they were pressed against Six's hips. Six's other hand slid up the outside of one of his thighs and right underneath his shirt to cup one of his cheeks, fingers digging in.
Underneath his skirt.
That's a good correction right there. I approve. Had his thigh against Six's hips. Six's other hand slid up the outside of one of his thighs and right underneath his skirt to cup one of his cheeks, fingers digging in as he pulled Ollie's hips closer and making his half-hard dick rub against Six's muscly stomach. He was whimpering as his bones turned to melted marshmallows when Six wrenched his mouth away and glared behind him. Why the fuck is it still ringing? It's not, Ollie said absently, trying to pull his face back around without much success. That's the timer. The dryer's done. That got Six to turn back toward him, brows furrowed. You've been here a day. How could you need to do laundry? Giving up and resigning himself to not getting any more mind-melting kisses, Ollie sighed and dropped his hands to his lap, trying to subtly rearrange himself in his underwear. It's not my laundry. It's yours, silly. When Six's fingers tightened in his hair, he winced, but not from the pain. He had a feeling Six wouldn't appreciate being called anything but his name or his title. Looking up through his lashes, he saw that Six was still frowning. But it wasn't aimed at Ollie. Six was staring toward his closet, like he could see inside at the now empty hamper. Mine, Six said finally. It wasn't really a question, but Ollie needed as much as he could with Six's hold still in his hair.
Ollie
Nodded. Hamper. Mine, Six said finally. It wasn't really a question, but Ollie nodded as much as he could with Six's hold still in his hair. Yes, Daddy, I wanted to do something for you to show that I could be good for you. He poked at Six's hard chest and pouted. I didn't know you were going to come back with your mind already changed about us. Some of the tension in Six's shoulders loosened as his fingers did, and he grunted. Turn off the alarm, Ollie. Sneaking in one more quick peck, Ollie bounded off Six's lap and hurried to where he'd left his phone on the bedside table plugged into Six's charger. Six made a disgruntled noise behind him. We need to talk about punishments, too, boy. After turning off the annoying timer, Ollie spun back around and gave Six his best innocent look, toeing the ground and swishing his skirt around his thighs. But, Daddy, why would I need to be punished? Six looked unimpressed with his act, but solid. But why would I need to be punished? Six looked unimpressed with his act, but Ollie was convinced he was just good at hiding how adorable he found him. He beamed at Six, waiting to see what he'd say or be given permission to go and get the finished laundry. We'll work on rules and consequences after you fold my clothes, Six said, standing and moving toward where Ollie still stood. And Ollie, there was an edge to Six's tone that made his toes curl and cock throb. Yeah, I better hit that a little harder. Toward where Ollie still stood. And Ollie, Six said, standing and moving toward where Ollie still stood. Six said, standing and moving toward where Ollie still stood. And Ollie. There was an edge to Six's tone that made his toes curl and cock throb. Yes, Daddy? You better do a good job, or you'll earn your first punishment, Six growled. His eyes widened in horror, even as his dick twitched in his tight underwear. He had a feeling he'd find everything Six did arousing, and despite wanting to know what kind of punishment he could earn, he darted out of the room to go and retrieve the dried clothes. By the time he returned to the room, Six had settled onto the bed again, but now he was at the top with his back braced against a slatted headboard, laptop on his legs. His eyes followed Ollie as he started working on folding each item from the basket, stacking them on the end of the bed. When Ollie was finished, his cock was fully hard and he felt flushed. He'd had no idea how arousing he'd find it to have Six watch him do something so mundane, but his mismatched eyes were like a caress everywhere they touched as they warmed with approval. As soon as he was done, Six pointed at the cot across the room. Thank you, Ollie. You did a great job. You can put them over there.
Stop.
And then...
You did a good job.
I thought it was fucking great. And Six pointed at the cot across the room. Thank you, Ollie. You did a good job. You can put them over there and then come here. Ollie hurried to comply, the simple praise and knowledge he had done something to help his daddy, filling him with pride and excitement as he scrambled up onto the bed and over Six's stretched-out legs to get to the space on the other side of him. Onto the bed and over Six's stretched-out legs to get to the space on the other side of him. He knelt with his knees touching Six's thigh and rested on his heels, waiting to see what Six would say next, and enjoying the, quiet, settled feeling in his mind. Closing the laptop before Ollie could get a peek at what he'd been looking at, Six set it aside and tapped his lap. Closer, Ollie. Ollie bit his lip as he eagerly swung one of his legs over both of Six's so he was back where he had been, straddling his daddy's lap. He sighed happily when Six immediately rested his hands on the outside of Ollie's thighs, calluses rough and the best possible way on his skin. This is where you belong when we talk about shit. Understood? Six said, his serious voice. Understood? Six said, his serious voice sounding almost harsh, but Ollie didn't mind. He nodded his agreement, and Six said, Words, Ollie. When he rolled his eyes, instead of answering, Six pinched one of his thighs. Ouch! That fucking hurt, he screeched, though the sting had already faded, and he doubted the quick pinch would even leave a mark. Six raised his brows, looking thoroughly unimpressed, and the righteous anger in Ollie drained away as quickly as it had flared up. First rule. You answer with your words when I ask you a question. Communicating can be hard for me, but I won't risk your fucking safety. Understood? Yes, Daddy, he said softly, feeling awful. I'm sorry. Forgiven, Six said easily, and something cracked inside Ollie's chest at the realization that Six wouldn't make him beg for forgiveness for days or give him the silent treatment when he messed up, even after he'd apologized. Things his ex had done that he'd hated. Thank you, Daddy, he whispered, leaning into Six's strong chest and soaking up his comforting warmth for a minute. Six only hummed, then rubbed at Ollie's thighs, not pressuring him to sit back up or continue the conversation before he was ready. For the first time in he didn't know how long, he felt completely safe and cared for. When he finally pushed himself back up and gave Six a watery smile, he felt a tiny bit floaty, but also calmer, ready to face whatever the rest of the rules would be without argument. He'd do just about anything to be Six's sub and keep getting to feel that way. Rule number 2. No cursing at me. Except that. What? He started shaking his head immediately. I can't do that one. Six snorted a laugh. Yes, you can. I didn't say it all. I said at me. Ollie sucked in a breath and forced himself to calm down. What happens if I break one of these rules? Depends on the severity of the infraction, Six said, and what your hard limits are. Sighing, Ollie tipped forward and planted on Six's chest once more. I suppose that makes sense, he mumbled into the skin of his neck. Six waited, not saying anything, for a long moment until Ollie sighed again. You want to know my hard limits now, don't you? Yes, Ollie. He started rattling off the things he knew for sure he couldn't handle in play or punishment. No scat, or water sports, and nothing that leaves bruises for more than a few days. And I need to be able to stand all day for my job. In fact, basically anything that could negatively impact my job is out. Six nodded, his chin brushing against Ollie's temple. Would a cage be too distracting while you work? He sucked in a breath. When Sex had Sid... distracting while you work. He sucked in a breath. When Six had said he wanted Ollie in a cage, he'd thought he meant when they were together, not when Ollie was away from her. One more time. Distracting while you work. He sucked in a breath. When Six had said he wanted Ollie in a cage, he thought he meant when they were together, not when Ollie was away from him. The idea sent heat rolling through him as he got lost in wondering what it would feel like to be cutting a client's hair but still know, without a doubt, that Six owned him. Ollie. There was humor in Six's voice, but Ollie rushed to answer anyway, not wanting to mess up again so quickly. I've never worn one, but I think it'd be okay, he said, sounding breathless even to himself. Six squeezed his thighs and hummed. What else? He tried to focus, clearing his throat, but Six's touch had gone from comforting to arousing in the blink of an eye. I don't want you to punish me in front of other people. Because it was embarrassing. I don't want you to punish me in front of other people. Because it would embarrass you. Yes, Daddy, he whispered, feeling hot in a not-so-good way, just thinking about anyone but Six watching him get punished. No humiliation, Six said, nodding. Is that just for punishment or play, too? How would it be for play? He asked hesitantly. Well, would you be comfortable wearing your skirt around the rest of the club? Ollie tensed automatically. A bunch of bikers? Tank had been completely fine, and Six obviously found it sexy, but would the others really be okay with it, or would he get snide comments? Would they be mean to me about it? Six's fingers dug into his skin. No. And if anyone was, they'd answer to me. The unspoken threat of violence probably shouldn't have been as comforting as it was, but Ollie slowly nodded. Then yeah, I'd be okay with it. He didn't see how that would be humiliating, or had Six been thinking he'd make Ollie do it if he wasn't comfortable with it? What if I shoved a plug in you and made you bend over to pick things up over and over again, so the others kept catching a glimpse and knew you were wearing it for me? Six said, voice guttural and cock twitching under Ollie. That didn't sound humiliating to Ollie. It sounded hot as hell. God, one day was CJ, and he was turning into an exhibitionist, too. I think I'd be okay with that. Would you be, knowing they'd be seeing me like that? Six grunted. A tiny glimpse of what I get and they don't. No matter how fucking sexy they find you, they don't get to touch you. Only I do. Ollie shivered and pushed up so he could see Six's serious face, his gorgeous eyes burning with a ferocity that lit a fire in his own belly. Only you, Daddy. Smirking, Six growled. Kiss me, boy. The rest of their discussion was a toe-curling boy. The rest of their discussion was a toe-curling combination of shared fantasies and limits, interrupted frequently with more kissing. Before too long, the kisses lasted longer than the talking did, and then Ollie found himself getting rolled onto his back, Six's heavy weight on top of him. He moaned long and loud, wrapping his legs around Six's to try and keep him as close as possible. When Six's teeth latched onto the skin of his throat in a biting kiss, Ollie couldn't help but beg for more. Please, Daddy, let me come. I've been so good. Six didn't answer with more than a hum as his mouth moved to a different spot and sucked a bit at it too. But one of his big hands slipped under Ollie's skirt and
Sucked and bit at it.
I knew what you said. I just wanted to hear you say sucked again. Please, Daddy, let me come. I've been so good. Six didn't answer with more than a hum as his mouth moved to a different spot and sucked and bit at it too. But one of his big hands slipped under Ollie's skirt and between their bodies, palming his aching cock and giving it a squeeze. Ollie held his breath when Six rubbed at him, slowly and not as hard as he was craving, but just as his fingers were tracing up the length toward where Ollie knew his head was sticking out above the waistband and soaking wet with pre-cum, Six stopped and raised his head. "This okay?" he asked, raspy and spine-tingling sexy. "What?" Ollie croaked, shaking his head to try and clear it. Hadn't he already begged to come? Why wouldn't he be okay with Six touching his cock? "Things are moving fast," Six said, studying Ollie's face. "I need to be sure." Ollie's inside softened into goo as he ran his hands up Six's sides and onto his shoulders and back down. "Yeah, we're doing this, right?" He ran his hands up Six's sides and onto his shoulders and back down. "Yeah, we're doing this, right? With the rules and power exchange and all the fun things we just talked about." Slowly, Six nodded. "If that's what you want, I need to hear you say it." Ollie moaned and arched into his lax hand, trying to get more friction on his dick. "Oh, I want it. I want it so much. That means the rules start now, right?" A sharp grin began to spread across Six's harsh face. "Yes. Which means unless I'm sick or safe word, my body belongs to you, Daddy," Ollie rasped, tipping his head back and biting his lip as excitement rolled through him just at saying the words. "Tell me your safe word one more time," Six said, pushing up to his knees and tugging his shirt off. Ollie had seen him shirtless last night, but even with the lamp on, a lot of him had been in shadow. Not now. Good Lord above and heavenly man-chest, he wasn't just a snack, he was the whole damn meal. The definition in his muscles was absolutely insane. He had a few tattoos, but he wasn't covered like Ollie assumed Tank was. The longer Ollie looked, the more he saw through. A jagged scar along his belly from...
The more he saw them.
That makes way more sense. He had a few tattoos, but he wasn't covered like Ollie assumed Tank was. The longer Ollie looked, the more he saw, though. A jagged scar along his belly from some sort of blade, maybe, in what looked like the puckered circle of a healed bullet wound, and... oh, God, were those old cigarette burns on one of his biceps? They were white with age, but the size and shape distinctive. Ollie. Six's brows were furrowed, his hands having paused on the button of his jeans. Hmm? What? Oh, artichoke. My safe word is artichoke, he said, deciding now wasn't the time to ask about the scars creating the road map of a hard life on Six's body. Six was watching him, still not moving to take off his pants, so Ollie decided it was his job to help his silly daddy. He unwrapped his legs from Six's waist and lifted them so they were straight in the air, right in front of Six's face, and reached under his skirt to work his thong off. It probably wasn't as sexy as he'd planned when he had to shift and squirm to get them off his hips and over his ass, but that was okay. Six hadn't told him to stop, his hands gripping Ollie's thighs as he pulled the black fabric up his legs. "How flexible are you?" Six asked, shifting his hands to the back of Ollie's legs and sliding them up to just behind his knees. Smirking, Ollie left his thong around his calves and spread his legs a little so he could see Six's face better. "I do yoga 3 times a week, Daddy." "Put your hands above your head," Six ordered, sliding his own farther up and taking Ollie's thong to his ankles and then pushing. There was a little burn in his unstretched muscles, but nothing he couldn't handle. When his legs were next to his ears, toes resting on the headboard above him, he raised a brow in triumph at Six's impressed look. He couldn't hold the position for an hour, but he was good for a while. "Grab your panties and don't let go," Six said, running his hand. Couldn't hold the position for an hour, but he was good for a while. "Grab your panties and don't let go," Six said, running his warm, calloused hands up and down the back of Ollie's thighs. Ollie moaned as he wrapped his fingers around the damp fabric, letting his arms take some of the strain of holding his legs in place. "Oh, yes, Daddy." "Good boy," Six praised, sliding his hands down to cup and spread Ollie's cheeks, fully exposing him to his searing gaze. Ollie shivered when he felt one of Six's thumbs run down his perineum to his hole. Fuck, perineum. Spread Ollie's cheeks, fully exposing him to his searing gaze. Ollie shivered when he felt one of Six's thumbs run down his perineum to his hole. So pretty and smooth. "Waxing party," Ollie gasped out as Six pushed the end of his thumb inside him without any warning. "Daddy." "What's a waxing party?" Six asked as he leaned over to grab the lube from out of the bedside table, pausing to give a quick bite to the back of Ollie's knee. He keened, the lick of pain racing up his leg to settle in his balls as white-hot pleasure. He was panting, heart pounding in his ears when he felt Six's wet finger at his hole as he bit him again. "Oh, God." "Answer the question, Ollie," Six said, then didn't wait for him to speak to start working one of his thick fingers inside him. Gasping, he moaned out, "Yes, Daddy," but then had to take a moment to catch his breath and his train of thought. Me and Mason and Vinny get together and wax each other." Six's finger shoved in the rest of the way, and his face appeared above Ollie's, scowling. "Do either of them fuck you?" He shook his head quickly, staring up at Six's wide eye. Scowling. "Do either of them fuck you?" Appeared above Ollie's, scowling. "Do either of them fuck you?" He shook his head quickly, staring up at Six wide-eyed as shocks of pleasure radiated throughout his body at the rough treatment. "No, I promise that they're subs too. They want a dom to share." "Good," Six grunted, sitting back up. "Then you can keep having your parties. CJ might like to join you." He opened his mouth to thank him, dick twitching in the best possible way at the fact that Six was giving him permission to let someone touch him, even for something as painful and non-sexy as waxing his balls and crack. But Six started working a second finger inside him and suddenly didn't have enough breath to speak. And I think I'm going to have to go back to... I have to go all the way back.
And keep having your parties. CJ might like to join you.
He opened his mouth to thank him, dick twitching in the best possible way at the fact that Six was giving him permission to let someone touch him, even for something as painful and non-sexy as waxing his balls and crack. But Six started working a second finger inside him, and he suddenly didn't have enough breath to speak. He whimpered and gripped his song tighter, but he fucking loved it. Loved that Six was touching him however he wanted because he owned Ollie's body, and trusting that he wouldn't do any actual damage. When he peeled his eyes back open, not wanting to miss anything that was happening, he groaned deep in his throat at the hungry way Six was staring at his ass and licking his lips, like he couldn't wait to get a taste, or like he couldn't wait to come inside him. They already had plans to go to the clinic to get tested Monday, even though they were both pretty sure they were negative. Six wouldn't hear of skipping the condoms until they were sure, despite them both being on prep, insisting Ollie's safety was too important. The combination of care and roughness made Ollie's head spin and start sinking into that fluffy, relaxed place. All he cared about was making Six happy, pleasing him in every way he could. So lost in sensation he almost missed Six grabbing a condom from the open drawer and squinting at it. He dropped it onto Ollie's stomach and quickly undid his jeans, only pushing them and his briefs far enough down to expose his thick cock and heavy-looking sack. Ollie's mouth watered and his fingers twitched, dying to get his hands or mouth on them.
You don't like what happens if you move your hands, huh?
I'm sorry, give that one to me again. Hands or mouth on him?
On him, yeah, it sounded like you said them.
Down to expose his thick cock and heavy-looking sack. Ollie's mouth watered and his fingers twitched, dying to get his hands or mouth on him.
You won't like what happens if you move your hands, Ollie,
Six said, voice so deep and rumbly he felt it in the back of his legs as Six leaned over him to steal a ravishing kiss. Ollie tried to chase after him when he pulled back, raising his head as far as he could before letting it fall back onto the bed with a pout. Six only chuckled as he tore open the wrapper and covered himself with quick and sure movements, then smeared some more lube over his cock. "I won't," Ollie said, meaning it, and consoled himself with the fact that he'd at least get to feel Six's impressive length inside his ass, if not his mouth quite yet. His ass, if not his mouth quite yet. Six grabbed his cheeks, his one hand wet and sticky from lube and making Ollie shiver. He moaned when Six dug his thumbs into his hole and pulled him apart. Gorgeous, mismatched eyes staring into his own, Six leaned down and spat right into his gaping hole. Lightning shot through him as he nearly came. Crying out and babbling incoherently, he tried to thank his daddy and beg for more all at the same time. He was so turned on. There were tears prickling at his squeezed-shut eyes as he fought to hold back his orgasm. He was teetering on the edge, already so close despite normally having fantastic stamina and control. But no one had ever touched him or controlled him like Six did, taking exactly what he wanted from Ollie's body and expecting a thank you in response, one Ollie would be happy to give him as soon as he felt like he could take a deep breath without shooting off. I got it, there's no that there. From Ollie's body and expecting a thank you in response, one Ollie would, from Ollie's body and expecting a thank you in response, one Ollie would be happy to give him as soon as he felt like he could take a deep breath without shooting off. Then Six forced his big cock inside him. And that was it. He couldn't hold back anymore. The hot burn at the rough intrusion, too much and just enough all at once. Cum shot out of the end of his dick as he bucked and twisted so much his daddy had to grab his thighs hard enough to bruise, punching his cock in and out at a brutal pace. The pleasure inside Ollie kept spiraling higher and higher, even after he stopped dribbling cum onto his skirt, and he moaned with every shove of Six's hips as he tipped over into that floaty space. Distantly, he heard Six call him perfect and gorgeous, and some other nice words that he'd appreciate later. At that moment, all he cared about was flying. Before I do this, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn on the light. Don't be shocked here. Blah! No. Thanks for hanging, everybody. There is our story time for the week. Again, that would be Temptation by Kiki Clark. Please, for the love of God, check it out. It's fantastic. The audio should be out in a week or two here. We're recording this on November 19th, 2021. I would think that it would probably be out in the next 5-6 days, somewhere in that range. But anyways, go check it out. Have fun. Thank you all for hanging, and enjoy your evening.